You're probably playing Reroll wrong. Wait, no, you definitely are. Yes, even if you are winning some games, most players think that Reroll is good, Reroll is great. It's about getting a nice Reroll augment, eventually getting the items, rolling it down, hitting the 3-star, and then trying to win the game. But the truth is, that's not actually how Reroll is supposed to work. Today, I'm going to break down how pros actually play Reroll, including what makes a good Reroll angle, when to pivot, and when to actually hard force the comp. To showcase what we're going to learn, we're also going to be looking at real in-game examples from high-level players, so we can learn a lot more about when and when not to take certain spots. So what does everyone get wrong about Reroll? Reroll comps are not something you play because they're strong on this patch. There's something you play because your early game points you to it. Most players are overforcing. They see a comp like Rengar pop off in the data, on tier lists, and then they get a copy of Rengar on stage 1. And then they type in all chat, me Rengar, and then mute all. But it's not that simple, because simply getting an early copy of the champion is oftentimes not enough. You should only play Reroll if you have both the units and the items early. So if you had a Bloodthirster, Titan's Resolve, or Hand of Justice ready to slam on your Rengar, maybe even with the early Graves or 2 Executioner or some Street Demon, that's when you hard force Rengar, not when you simply just have a copy of the champion and none of the items and none of the other units. So what is a good reroll spot? This is going to depend on what type of reroll you're going. There's 1 cost, 2 cost, and 3 costs. For 1 cost reroll, you definitely want to see at least 3 copies of your unit by stage 2-1, preferably even 4 or more, to be honest. Is it playable with less? Yes, it is. But if you want to actually dominate your games where you play reroll, you want to be playing them much more selectively. For 2 costs, you could have maybe 1 copy of the unit and perfect items, or maybe 2 copies of the unit and half the items. Next, you need your augment to actually support your reroll. And oftentimes, it's not having a reroll augment. It's a bit counterintuitive, but you don't actually want Prismatic Ticket, you don't actually want Pandora's Bench when you are playing reroll, because you should already have so much of the unit that you don't need those augments to hit the 3-star, and then you take something like a combat augment instead. You know those games where you just hit a 3-star for free without even rolling, and then you just get to power level to like level 9 or whatever you want? Those are the games where reroll is going to be super, super powerful. And then you have a combat augment or an item augment to put on top of it. So unless a comp is super duper duper broken OP, you do not need the reroll augment. In this game, Wei Iverson, he's got a Twist of Fate on bench, and then he gets offered Keep Your Friends Close, which is one of those specific trait augments which gives another Twist of Fate and improves your Syndicate units. He also has a Rod on his bench, which is half a Rage Blade and also half a Hextech Gunblade, and Twist of Fate wants double Rage Blade and Hextech Gunblade. So he's got everything going for him. He's got the items going for him, he's got the units going for him, and he's got the augments going for him. This is one of those insane spots where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna reroll. So when are reroll augments actually good? Because obviously there are times for this. If you get something like Category 5 for Vayne, which makes her Runon's Hurricane go absolutely ballistic, then yeah, it's gonna work. If you get Blighting Jewel or Sniper's Focus on Fiddlesticks, yeah, that's gonna be really good too. You for sure can hard force them in those cases. But again, it's always gonna depend on the patch because they're not always going to be that good. But if let's say you popped an Artifact Anvil because you know it's good on Rengar, and then you get something like a Hull Crusher, obviously, is it still usable on Rengar? Yes. But you really were aiming for stuff like Prowler's Claw, Silvermere Dawn, Spectral Cutlass, Mittens. And even though you got a usable item for Rengar in Hull Crusher, it's really not where you want to be, so you just shouldn't be forcing that comp unless you get a lot of copies of Rengar later on. But if you do get something like Category 5 for Vayne in the early game, on stage 3 and 4, you can take a reroll augment or something that gives you more econ to actually hit your 3-star, because again, you have the big boost from your first augment, and then you're allowed to take something a little bit later. Let's take a look at the spot from Wei Iverson where he's playing Nitro. Nitro's a pretty popular comp, and he has a lot of Kindreds and a 2-star Nidalee already. The way Nitro works is that your Robot or T-Hex scales a lot faster based on the star level of your Nitro units. So getting everything to 3-star is going to help out this comp a ton. So this is one of those good times to take something like Prismatic Ticket. But even then, you could see him debating whether he should re-roll it before re-rolling the other ones. Again, there's a time and place for every augment, and when you need to hit like a ton of 3-stars, Prismatic Ticket is going to work really well for you. But if you're looking for just one specific one, then it doesn't really matter that much. You also have to keep in mind he had an absolutely insane start for this. He had 6 Kindreds and 3 Nidalees. And then he ended up winning that game with a 3-star Sejuani. Another thing people get wrong about Reroll is that it's not the best comp for winning the game. It's great for top 4ing, and that's because you play it from a lose streak start in most cases. When you're playing reroll, you need a big economy to hit your power spike, so you oftentimes lose a lot on stage 2, or maybe you go win, lose without spending any money. Then when you're low on stage 3, you stabilize somewhere in stage 3-1 or 3-2, dominate stage 3 with a 2-star 2 cost or 2-star 3 cost, dominate stage 4 because maybe you get some more of your supporting cast because you've been rolling, and sometimes you even get the early 3-star, lose a little bit in the later parts of stage 4, and then start winning again once you hit your 3-star 3 cost or 3-star 2 cost in stage 5. The issue is, since you spent so much of your gold rolling, especially for 3 cost reroll, it's very expensive, you're oftentimes not going to have enough money to go level 9 to get a lot of legendary units. You might get 1 or 2 of them, they might be 1-star, but you're not going to have like a 2-star Zac or Garen to push your team to the max cap. Furthermore, if you took an econ augment, that's another sign that it's going to be a little bit difficult to play for first place, because econ augments are generally used for top 4ing because it provides consistency over max cap. So in the early game, if you are lose streaking, find some reroll comp to play, hit it, and then in the late game, play for top 4s. Don't try to greed out for a top 1. Again, in stage 3 and 4, when you're rolling, when has it ever been true in TFT where rolling in the stage leads to a lot of wins? You often do this to stabilize and just try to get top 4s. I'm not saying it's impossible to win with reroll, because obviously if you don't have to roll and you hit your comp, then you can go level 9, then you can get 2-star legendaries. But in most cases, you're investing so much into your team comp in the mid game that of course you don't have enough resources for the super late game to get first place. But the good news is that there's nothing wrong with top 4ing. You gain LP there. If you farm a lot of thirds and seconds, you're going to be climbing a lot, and then the one time you do get lucky, you do get your first place and win. But again, in general, reroll comps are played from lose streak starts or high econ starts with a lot of copies of that unit, and then in the late game, you want to be playing for top 4s. Speaking of win streaking, let's say you do win streak a lot with a reroll start, because let's just say you hit your units naturally. There are times to pivot. You could swap out of the reroll and go into a fast 8 instead, because you're 100 health, you have a huge win streak going, and you want to keep pushing levels to keep your win streak, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as your items can fit into some other comp. For example, if you have Rageblade Twisted Fate and he's 2-star, he could carry you all throughout stage 3, you could power level and then swap to maybe a Zeri comp who also uses the Rageblade in stage 4 and then play for a fast 8 and go from there. Other times to pivot off of reroll is, let's say you get one of your key units on stage 1, let's talk about the Rengar again. If you don't see perfect items, or you don't see another copy of him by stage 3-2, like the time you want to start rolling, sometimes you can just cut your losses and switch to something else instead. You don't always have to keep the Rengar the whole game just because you got it from your first loot orb. Don't get me wrong, it's great to get these units from the very beginning, but you don't absolutely have to marry that unit. Now let's look at an example from Dish Soap. He gets an early Twisted Fate, keeps it on his bench because you want to keep the option for reroll open. He also has Rapid Fire with a Cogmaw and a Skarner, which is often used in a lot of early game TF builds because you have the Skarner and Cogmaw for boombots, Twisted Fate for rapid fire, and then Braum is also a Vanguard if you do end up hitting it. But he's not going to just blindly hard force Twisted Fate, because look at his items. He doesn't have any Rageblade components and he doesn't have any Gunblade components, so he just ends up selling the Twisted Fate and going for something else instead. So let me give you the reroll checklist right now so you don't make these mistakes in the future. In most cases, you want to have lots of copies of your unit early. For 1-cost units, it's going to be 3 or more, preferably 4 or more. For 2-cost units, you want 1 or 2 copies, and for 3-cost units, having 1 copy is enough. But of course, you want to combine that with ideal item components, preferably something you could slam right away to save a lot of HP. You want to remove the crutch of having a reroll augment to help you hit your 3-star, because you should only be going for your reroll comp if you have a lot of copies of that unit. You need to be willing to pivot if the stars don't align sometime in stage 3, and remember that rerolling is great from playing from a lose streak. Lastly, your goal is to top 4 in most games, not trying to win. Of course, there are exceptions to some of these rules, which we've covered in this video, but for like 95% of your games, these are some good rules to follow. So next time you're tempted to reroll just because you saw it on bunnymuffins.lol/meta, look at your spot and ask yourself, would someone good at TFT play this? If yes, play it. If not, pivot. Let me know what your thoughts are on this counterintuitive strategy, either down in the comments below or on Discord, and I'll see you all in the next video.